Hi there. Welcome to a Carlton Witch Ramble, where we are going through the energy of the Silvagnis, which, if you have not watched the first one, please go and do so that this part of the story will make a lot of sense to you. In the first one, we went through the energy of Stephen and Joe, and today we're going to look at Jack, we're going to look at Serge, and we're going to look at Stephen. And if we get time, we're also going to have a little bit of a look at Jack and Joe and how their energy overlaps. So let's just get straight into it. Now, it's a Stephen Serge Jack, but we're going to start on Jack. Now, Jack's energy is one that I have been following since I came into contact with Carlton. I very much got into it when he was injured in 2023. And there was a lot of information that came up in regards to his energy in 2023. One part of it that was particularly interesting to this conversation is in regards to him needing to make a decision about whether or not football was for him. Am I playing football for the legacy, or am I playing football for myself? And I was certain that he would come out of that year of an injury, and I was certain that he would decide that it was for him. But the recent turn of events with St. Kilda coming in to claim him has changed my mind a little bit. And the energy suggests that he has decided to go the long route, which is that of stepping back into the family vibe, which under the current circumstances, not great. So when we look at Jack's energy system here now, particularly interesting that out of his whole entire family, he is the only fire sign. Now, it is said, and as a mother of a Sagittarius myself, it is said in the astrology world that you give birth to a Sagittarius when you need some kind of chaotic situation in order to find a higher wisdom with yourself, right? To find out something, to change something, to evolve something is why you get a Sagittarius child. So just that part alone tells us a little bit about the relationship that Stephen and Joe had. It also tells us where Joe was in her journey when she was pregnant with Mr. Jack. Okay, so let's just have a little looky at Jack's energy. Now, just keep in mind that his mother, Joe, is a Pisces, and that the moon placement in our chart tells us how we experienced the mother. Jack's moon is in Pisces. He also has a Lilith in Pisces, and Lilith is a wounding from the mother. It is the rejected self. It is the parts of us that we have been made to feel guilt and shame about. And in a chart like this, where we are looking through the ancestry, it is where we can see he holds some of this ancestral energy that the Silvagni name is here to pay karma for. So when we're looking at a Sagittarius in comparison to some of these other energies, it's very different, okay? So Joe is a Pisces, a water sign. Stephen is a Gemini, an air sign. His grandfather, Serge, a water sign. His brothers are Taurus and Libra, earth and air. So Jack is the only fire sign, and his brother, Ben, is the only earth sign. Now, when we look at Jack, we can see a number of things in this chart. Let's have a look. Saturn in Aquarius. Now, Saturn speaks to the way in which you experienced your father. And that's one of the things. It also is how you build an inner value system. It's how you discipline yourself. It's karmic energy. Okay. Now, in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius means that you experienced your father as someone who was not very present. Okay. Very kind of cold emotionally. And very recently, astrologers have started interpreting a Saturn in Aquarius as experiencing your father as someone who was neurospicy. Looking at Stephen's chart, you can see a number of placements that lead you to believe that there's potentially some ADHD in there. But that is the Gemini energy anyway. Gemini is the original energy of ADHD. So we can see that Jack experienced his father as not around a lot, as distracted, as following his own path. And a moon in Pisces speaks to experiencing your mother as someone who honestly was depressed, as someone who either showed all of her feelings, all of the feelings, all of the time, or seemingly was quite cold and didn't want to have any of the feelings. Pisces energy, the three evolutions of Pisces, the middle one, you kind of stop having feelings because you've had way too many. You've experienced way too much trauma. Pisces energy in our chart is where we can see the family trauma has rolled through. So for Jack, his moon in Pisces at 10 degrees in the 10th house. So the 10th house is your career house. It's your legacy, right? It's your social reputation. So both 10 degrees and the 10th house are relating to Jack's most seen persona, his most public reputation. Now, his mother and her trauma and the way that she was and he experienced her as a child affects his career and his legacy in a really heavy way. Jack also has an 11th house in Pisces and a Lilith in Pisces. So the Lilith in Pisces, it's definitely trauma. It's definitely the rejected self around dealing with that trauma. It is also the rejected self around his own emotional and spiritual connection to himself. And it tends to have you questioning quite a lot, why is this happening to me? It is the shake your fist at the sky kind of energy, in the same way that his father, Stephen, has a Chiron in Pisces at 29 degrees. It is a wounding around faith. It is a rejected self around faith, and it comes from a lot of traumatic energy. So we can see that Jack experienced Joe as someone who was, traumatized, definitely. Now, he shares that with his father. He shares that energy with his father, that they both have this moon in Pisces. So they both have this similar energy of the way they've experienced their mothers as someone who experienced a lot of trauma. So then when we go through Jack's energy a little bit more, we'll have a look here at the Mercury in Scorpio. Communication, the way his mind works. It makes you, having a Mercury in Scorpio makes you very observant and very absorbent to people lying, to people deceiving you with words. If words were spells, Jack has the ability, especially within relationship dynamics, to make people take responsibility for their lies. Okay. Now, his Scorpio energy sits in the 7th house, which is relationships. He also shares that with his father. The difference being here, Jack's Scorpio energy is his Mercury and his Pluto. Now, Pluto is power and fear, and the Pluto in Scorpio generation is a generation of people who have experienced some kind of trauma when it comes to the reproductive system and everything that that involves. Scorpio energy rules over the reproductive system, and Scorpio energy is everything from questioning your sexual identity all the way up until SA. So there are a number of different things within that genre of Pluto in Scorpio that is both power and fear. Now, we can see here that that's at 23 degrees, which is an Aquarius degree. So there's an authenticity to it. There is also an energy to it that allows him to see it from an external perspective, especially in relationships. So not only is this somebody who can make somebody take responsibility by the way he uses his words, but by the way people speak to him and he receives communication, he is able to see deceit in the words, in reading between the lines. And the same thing happens with this 7th house in Scorpio, that it really makes you able to see when people are being deceitful in relationships. The other thing that it does is it kind of makes you attract cheaters. Okay? Because it's testing you. Because it's testing you. And because Jack has power and fear in Scorpio energy and his relationships are built on that, he would be very aware of that sort of energy in people. And he's both scared of it, but acknowledges its power. Now, because he would have experienced, and as a Sagittarius, you want to be optimistic, but you do tend to experience a lot of this deceitful energy when you have a Mercury in Scorpio and a 7th house in Scorpio. A lot of your relationships are trying to show you where your intuitive qualities of reading between the lines are actually correct. Now, it's interesting to me that when we look at Serge's chart, we can see that his 10th house, his career kind of energy, his legacy energy is in Scorpio. And he also has his North Node in Scorpio. So there is something about integration and learning about how to embody this Scorpio energy, this deceitful energy, this untrusting betrayal kind of energy, and the energy of being a cheater and of sexual darkness. And his North Node in Scorpio. And then how does that pass to Stephen, his son? Well, it comes into his Neptune. Now, his Neptune is representative of that trauma line, that family line, that ancestral line, okay? Delusions and illusions relating to those sort of qualities. And then that's also his 7th and 8th house. So it's his relationship energy and his transformation. So Jack has learned from the way that his father has behaved in relationships, he's learned how to sense that energy in his own relationships. And now the reason that I would say to sense it and to not take it on is because of a number of his other energies. Okay. So Mercury and Scorpio, being able to read between the lines, that tells me that he has experienced a lot of people being deceitful. The Sagittarius quality to him, it does give you, look, it tends to in a lot of people, it's got a bit of a promiscuous kind of vibe to it. Like it's very, and it's not with his chart, but a lot of Sagittarius people, especially if you've got Sagittarius anywhere in your relationship energy, you tend to be someone who struggles with monogamy. However, Jack has a Venus in Capricorn, which Venus in Capricorn, you have to work. Okay. You have to work to truly have somebody make you feel loved, right? You have an understanding that it takes effort to get to know somebody deeply, and that's how relationships should be. We should take the time to get to know somebody deeply. That's what a Venus in Capricorn person does. You would very rarely see a Venus in Capricorn person be a cheater, I'm telling you, because they are in it for the long game. So they're not a cheater. They might be a player in their earlier days, but when they lock in, they really want to lock in Venus in Capricorn, especially because that's at a Capricorn degree and it's in the 9th house, the value system. And his whole 9th house is ruled by Capricorn. Okay. So he commits. When he says he commits, he commits. And then he's got a Mars in Cancer. So his masculine energy, just like his grandfather's, is very much based on an emotional connection with himself, understanding himself, right? He's emotionally fueled. And so that also means if you are in a bad mood and you go and play sport, then you are using that bad mood to play sport. Okay. It means that if you have any kind of repressed feelings, you can actually use those and take it out in some kind of active way. And fire signs, especially Sagittarius energy, they need to have some kind of action to clear out a lot of their energies. Interesting to me, again, that we see Stephen, he has his Venus in Cancer, meaning that he, that's the mother wound there, and he really needs to be nurtured and feel safe and secure in relationships. But this Mars in Libra versus Mars in Cancer over here. Mars in Libra, it's a bit non-committal, right? Libra energy, it's an air sign. It likes external validation that it's showing up the right way, right? It likes to kind of look good. It puts together, a really good external aesthetic. And so masculine energy being ruled over by that, and being a Gemini, and being manipulative with communication, and looking for this like nurturing kind of love. This is someone definitely who would be a player. Like all of the capabilities of it, and gets lucky with it. Jupiter and Leo gets lucky with it. And like it's kind of, it goes against this mother wound of his that needs him to be nurtured, and that's why he does it, okay? So anyone who wants to come on here and tell me that Steven's not a cheater, I'm telling you right now, yes, he is. Yes, he is. But of course, this is for entertainment value only. We can't be believing astrology, although I don't have their exact birth time. So please give them to me if you are watching this and do have them. So Jack, when we look at Jack, and he's got this Mars in Cancer, just like Granddad, his Libra energy is here in Jupiter, meaning that he does have to have relationships with people that he enjoys in order to expand his life. His best way forward, his best chance of taking a risk is through relationships with people. Now, his Libra energy rules over his 6th house as well. And the 6th house is about your habits. It's about how you go through the world. It's about your connection to your own physical body. Now, that tells me that relationships for Jack would play a huge part in him not feeling well. Okay, the 6th house rules over those sorts of things as well. So we get these like energies of holding on to this like mother wound space, right? And it's affecting his career, 10th house. And then the way he expands his life and grows and moves forward, like what stops him from doing that? What gets in the way? Relationships and the value systems that come from relationships. Okay, it impacts his ability to have a good time. And it also, there is a discomfort in these relationships here because of the relationship value system internally, because of some kind of powerless feeling as a child around relationships. And like, this is somebody who came from a family, 4th house of family, 5th house of inner child and pleasure and fun, came from a family that was very fucking egotistical, right? And he shares that, of course, with Steven, 4th house in Leo, Jupiter in Leo for Steven as well, point of fortune in Leo. So for Steven, his ego actually brought him quite a lot of luck, right? That's not great for a Gemini because they'll keep doing it, right? They keep doing it, keep pushing, keep pushing. But when we look at poor old Jack and his Leo energy, which is where you find your confidence, which is where you find your big, brightest light of the sun. And where is that? Childhood wound from the father, Chiron in Leo. Now, Chiron in Leo is a placement, and because it's at 23 degrees, and especially in the 4th house, I mean, he was weird. He felt weird. He felt very different from his family, and he definitely was. And when you have a Chiron in Leo, it's being overshadowed. Like your own expression of self gets overshadowed, which it would have by his father, which it would have by the name that the family carries. And it's like anytime you do something that you think is worthy of achievement, somebody overshadows it, or there's some kind of distraction, right? So he has this wound from the mother in regards to a lot of trauma energy that she's experienced that affects his 10th house, his career, his legacy. And then he has this wounding from the father that affects his confidence. And a Chiron in Leo person is not someone who wants to be in the limelight. It's not someone who needs to be seen. It's not someone who needs to have a gold star. It's not someone who needs their name up in lights. There's a kind of a fear around that. He's been taught not to do that. And so 23 degrees as well in the 4th house, there was a specific way that his family wanted him to show up. Okay. Sun in the 8th house. Jack is here to transform things through his chaos, right? That is why his family got him. That's why his energy is different to everybody else's. His North Node is also in Sagittarius. So he is here to transform through a higher understanding, through a deeper understanding of himself and his ancestry. Okay. Because this puts his South Node in Gemini. And what's his father? As Gemini. Now, when we look at Serge's Gemini energy, we can see it's down here in his 5th house of fun. We can see that 5th house of fun also relating to the child as well. So Serge's childhood affects his fork in the road moment, like gives him opportunities. And the way that has translated across to Jack is that it affects his idea of worth, his self-worth, and his South Node, so his karmic lessons. Now, his karmic lessons, of course, Gemini energy straight from the fucking father, aren't they? His power and fear energy, Scorpio, straight from the trauma in his father's line. The trauma that he uses in relationships, the trauma that he uses in the way that he transforms. It's very transformative. This is somebody who is a number of people, Stephen, right? A number of people. Because a Gemini is 2 twins, right? They're always 2 people. They have 1 foot in the dark, 1 foot in the light all times. That's how he communicates. His masculine energy is 2 sides of a scale. the way that he is comfortable, South Node in Scorpio, is kind of being secretive. And then being seen is the discomfort. I don't want to be seen. And then over here, first house in Taurus, I wear a mask, right? Jack wears that mask as well. But Steven has this second house in Taurus. So his worth is very attached to the money and the mask. Whereas over here, Jack's is about him being able to express himself, him being able to communicate, the way he communicates, the way his communication is received. Communication plays a huge part in Jack feeling worthy of being seen and in his self-worth. And he got that from experiencing his grandfather make life changes by the way that he used his Gemini energy. So a lot of the way that Jack needs to move forward is in understanding that these qualities of his authentic energy were made to trigger his family and that he is made differently. So his point of fortune in Leo, which is the same as his father's, except his father's comes through talking, right? Through this third house, 3 degrees, third house sort of stuff, right? Which is in relation to Mercury, which for him, very deceptive, which he learned from his family. And then the third house in Cancer down here. So a third house in Cancer, it's people that like to pretend that they've got more information than they have, right? That's the base level of it. So over here, Jack has that same placement, but because his Cancer energy is in his masculine energy where he can use it for fuel, it's 27 degrees, so it's a Gemini degree, it's third house as well. But the third house in Cancer for him with his second house in Gemini and this fear of his expression being seen, Chiron in Leo, this is not as manipulative, right? Because he knows that, like, he sees between the lines of what people say. So he is very aware of the results of lying and how people can see it. And there is a strictness to him with the way that he communicates. So he might be showing up as somebody who talks like they know more than they know, but that's coming from the fact that half of the things that he knows are intuitive. So he's not as manipulative as somebody over here, Mr. Steven, who has information, who uses information manipulative. It is his experience with manipulation that makes him very aware that other people can see through your bullshit. So when we move down through Jack's energy and we have a look down at the house system here, having a 12th house in Aries, it does make it really difficult for you to be able to find that I am energy, who the fuck I am, what I am here to do, right? Which he shared with his father. Now, this 12th house in Aries, when we look to Serge, when we look to Steven, they both have a Saturn in Aries. So what this is doing really is it's taking this wound, this father wound, this aggressive, either emotionally or physically aggressive way of experiencing the father that Steven and Serge had, and it's kind of hiding it from Jack. It's kind of hiding it from him because his father was not as present. He didn't experience his father as present. So it's just interesting to me that we look at the way that the Scorpio energy, which if you watch the first part, that's one of the important parts of this story, the way that it's passed from Serge, right? The way that it's passed from Serge into Steven, and then the way that Jack sees it is he is able to read people's lies because of it. I just want to quickly add Joe to the mix of this, just quickly, and then we'll go look at how their energies overlap. But if you just have a little looky here, and I hope you can see it or zoom in or whatever. But when we're looking at this energy here, you can really see how affected Jack is, and you'll be able to see it a bit more when we move into the next part of this video. But you can see, like, Joe's family energy is this 4th house in Scorpio, right? Childhood, also Scorpio energy. So the way that that's passed through to Jack, again, relationships. So he's really had a huge effect from his mum and his dad on what relationships shouldn't look like, is the way that this reads to me, okay? Because Joe and Steven, the way their relationship works is not, I'm not about it. It's pretty toxic, the way that their relationship works, okay? And you can find that out in the first video. But the way that Jack experienced them 100% affects the way that he builds relationships. And Joe's energy as well, like her Sagittarius energy right here in her Neptune, her trauma energy. So her family trauma energy, her line of family trauma energy, that is Jack's overall energy. So he is a massive trigger for her when it comes to that family trauma energy, a massive trigger. And that's rough. And so there is these energies that you can see, like her Lilith is in Leo as well. So she has this same kind of weird rejected self around having herself be seen, like being seen in public. He gets that from her. So he carries a lot of the mother line of trauma, but he also carries this karmic line that came through the fathers of the Scorpio energy. Okay. So very interesting. Let's move on to looking at their charts overlap and let's see what we can get out of that. So what we're looking at here is Jack's birth chart on the zodiac map. Don't panic. You don't need to be able to read any of this, but we're just going to look at a couple of things, okay? So let's have a look at the energy that Jack has been dealing with over the last, let's just have a look for now and see if it will help us understand some things. Okay, so this is the way that the 4th of December, which was the date that the article came out, that Jack's injury was still stopping him. Whether we believe it or not, maybe we'll be able to see it here. This is the way that the universe was affecting Jack, okay? So we have the outside here is the universal energy, and we have the inside here, which is Jack. So one of the first things that I'm going to look for is what's in the 10th house, because that's your career. So over here in the 10th house for Jack, we have got the North Node, the things that he's here to learn, where he's here to go to, okay? This is the North Node in the sky. Now, Jack, his South Node is in Pisces. The North Node here is in Pisces. So on the 4th, the North Node was at the Aries degree, which is part of what Jack is here to learn. And it was causing some friction, some obstacles with Jack's sun, his essence, who he is as a person, amplified by the sun in the sky being conjunct his sun. Okay, so the sun is how you see the world. The sun is your essence. The sun is how you shine your light. Okay, now Jack, Sagittarius at 10 degrees, the sun in the sky, Sagittarius at 12 degrees. So there was a conjunct energy here, which was really pushing that truth-seeking energy forward. And it was causing friction here, making a square with the North Node where he was heading. And these here in the middle, we have the North Node conjunct his moon. So his emotions here, his mother energy playing a part, okay? Now it's asking for something to shift, an outworn energy when it comes to how he uses his masculine energy, his drive, okay? So this is kind of telling me that, yeah, the injury was absolutely putting a stopper on it. Now, that was because he needed to make a conscious effort in his relationship space, okay, in order to be able to see some kind of untapped skill. Now, at the same time, it was also making this aspect with how people see him. So his outward reputation was being affected. It was causing friction with the way that he sees the world and what he's allowed to do in the world. And it was involving his emotions and his masculine energy and his drive. Now, masculine energy is very much related to football. So it was asking for something that he would normally do that was repetitive, compulsive, obsessive to be looked at. That he needed to make a conscious effort with something to do with his relationships here and causing friction here with his sun. Now, in his 9th house, we also see some energy moving over there. So his 10th house, his career and legacy, and this whole concept here of his rejected self, the family trauma, the mother line trauma is making an aspect here with his Neptune, which represents the karmic past, and his Uranus, which is about change. 16 degrees is family degree, 17 degree is Leo, so his confidence. Okay, that kind of tells me that the injury was real, to be honest. So then what else? Saturn teaching lessons. Let's see. Big Daddy Saturn teaching a lot of lessons here. Okay, so Big Daddy Saturn in the sky is kind of finalizing the last 3 years. It's also finalizing a 30-year transit, okay? It's working very closely with Neptune in Pisces, currently at 29 degrees, finishing off a massive karmic cycle of about 160-ish years, and also closing out a 15-year window. So, where were they impacting Jack? So we had a square causing friction, having an obstacle for the sake of growth, which was talking to giving him fated moments and also overcoming some of the things that are getting in his way for his future journey. Okay, so a fated moment. Now, that fated moment likely to come through some kind of relationship dynamic here, the way that he relates to the world, okay, especially the way that he relates to his family. That's really looking to me like an opportunity for a fated moment to change something that he was destined for in regards to ancestral trauma karma, right? The karma from ancestral fuckery. Now, Mars was also there. Mars is directly conjunct his North Node. Okay. This is taking action, right? So this really tells me, and this is in the house of transformation, that the injury, I think it was real. I think what they said about it was real. It was an opportunity, though. It's an opportunity to change something. It's an opportunity that was kind of out of his hands, right? Because this is the fated moment and Mars is right there with it. And so then over here, what is in his hands, right? So out of his hands is how that appears in relationships and how the action that he takes in relationships and how that affects moving forward. Out of his hands, completely being transformed by the universe. Big Daddy Saturn, though, also causing some friction over here in the second house, house of worth, house of money. Now, over here is the South Node, and over here is him being able to take fate into his own hands. Now, this is going to be in relation to his outward persona. So, how he handles this fuckery gives him an opportunity to control how people see him through his window. Okay. Now, communication over here, trining communication. So Saturn was allowing communication to work well for his masculine energy, Jupiter for expansion here. And this is his kind of luck energy over here. So the way that it was communicated, not really a lot of negative effects here. Potentially allowing him, which I don't think he took, but allowing him an opportunity to speak confidently about it if he wanted to with this point over here. Now, there's a couple of questions being asked, though. You know, something that he does repetitively when it comes to how he communicates, especially if it's from a point of ego, needed shifting. Maybe that's why he didn't speak up. And then we have this here in conjunction with the family house and the childhood wound from the father affecting his confidence and his individuality. So Saturn is really saying that there is something that needed to change and shift when it comes to that. Okay. When it comes to that childhood wound, being offered an opportunity to change it. Another thing very interesting to point out here is the 12th house, things that are hidden. Now, what we can see here and the things that are hidden is in the sky is these placements called the MC and also Chiron. Okay. Now, Chiron is at 22 degrees, which is the Capricorn degree relating to the 10th house, relating to career and legacy. So the childhood wound placement collectively in the sky is talking about the legacy wounding to the I am Aries energy, to who I am and what is my legacy, hidden from Jack. Also hidden from Jack, MC, which is our most social reputation, and the details, 18 degrees of that. Okay. This is actually protection from the universe because 18 degrees is a bit of a bitch of a degree. It's very narky. It's very detail oriented, right? So the details of the work life and the childhood wound that affects who we are at work, hidden from Jack, which probably a good sign. So the MC here in the sky hidden from him, conjunct the childhood wound, causing friction for him to change, to evolve, to move away from ancestral trauma that affects his confidence, to accept that he needs to change his values around relationships within his career path. Okay. Working with his ability to have a fated moment come in, right? That fated moment. And really asking him to look at relationships, just again over here, really asking him to look at relationships, really asking him to look at the way that his masculine energy and that primal masculine energy is used. And his wounding is very close over here to that primal masculine energy. Okay. So Chiron in Leo, and then he's got this wounding that really affects his ability to stand up for himself in a lot of ways, okay, especially in the workspace. Now, there's a trine happening as well. So this is actually helping this hidden component of the workplace, the details within the workplace and the childhood wound that affects him, hidden. And it's actually for the benefit of him being able to heal himself. But that part is hidden. Now, there's also a square happening with the third house, which there's nothing in there that it's talking to, but the square with the third house, 12th and the third house, is really saying that there is this thing that we can't see about ourselves, and now we're trying to find a way to communicate it. Okay, very interesting. It's also very interesting to me that the DC line, the relationship line, how we first start interacting with other people, is in Scorpio. Okay, so something hidden. And for Jack, wounded. Okay, the wounding placement really being opened up here. So let's skip to now, shall we? Because we are currently right now, we've just had a new moon in Sagittarius. So how are we feeling today, Jack? Okay, so now we can see the sun's moved over here, right? But Mercury is now conjunct his sun. So there's a lot of thinking going on now. There's a lot of trying to understand what his career is going to look like from his own individual perspective. There is a pretty fated moment when it comes to his relationship dynamics. He's been given an opportunity to be an individual, to show up in his authentic light and to transform something about his relationships. He's also got the sun very close there as well. That's very interesting to me. Okay. So then we're going to come over here. The MC now, still in the 12th house, but it's slightly moved. It's much closer here to how he's being seen. So once that kind of crosses back in there, I'm sure we're going to see Jack back out in the public. But here in the 10th house, something is changing here in the 10th house. Something is being offered to him here, a fated moment to transform something. Now, it's transforming something definitely about this childhood wound, this masculine energy childhood wound, and something that he keeps very private, very hidden within that family space. There is a moment of fate going on, and I think we all know where that's coming from. Okay. So then we have this other square over here to the relationship. All right. So it's really making him confront how he thinks about relationship, how he hides things. You know, Pluto is there as well. So Pluto and Mercury both in the 7th house have a pretty huge effect on how you feel comfortable communicating dark emotions, okay? And how you can really pick up on other people's dark intentions and other people's deceitful fucking behavior, okay? Now, the 3rd house here rules siblings, okay? Now, Jupiter is there expanding the 3rd house, and this is an in conjunction, saying that something needs to change, something needs to be altered. And so we have here this moment of fate, and it's transforming something, and it's trying to change something about the siblings. that's being expanded. And it's something, 22 degrees, that affects this legacy. Very interesting. Okay, so we can see here that this MC line, this social reputation, okay, this is Jack's Saturn. Now, when your Saturn is right here, it means that your karma gets played out socially. Okay? So he needs to be really aware of that. That's why when we see this over here, okay, Mercury making this aspect with his Saturn, meaning that like conversation, the giving and receiving of communication needs to be careful of it because it's conjunct his sun, meaning we can see it. And it's over here, career line, social reputation line, has to be very fucking careful with how that looks, okay? Now that is in a direct opposition here with luck, with his luck and with communication, and then right here in something that he's keeping very private, which I think we all know what that is. We also see it over here affecting this ascendant line, okay, causing friction in the way that he's being seen, right? The ascendant line is like directly causing some bullshit here. And then also this in conjunction, his like the way that people see him, the window, right? It's saying that something needs to shift, something needs to move. There's something that needs to be adjusted in this discipline line. Very interesting. And his Jupiter is also, because his Jupiter trines this, right? So it's affected by all of this energy as well. So what we're looking at now is how Jack and Steven get along. Okay. So we have got Jack on the inside and we got Steven on the outside. So let's find this karmic energy. Let me tell you about this karmic energy. Okay, so this is the first house. Okay. First house. This is Steven over here with his DC in Jack's first house. The DC is relationships. 29 degrees is a critical degree. It's in Taurus, so it's about external, surface level bullshit, money, right? Relationships of money, relationships of worth. Sits in Jack's first house. So here we have Steven's sun. Steven's sun, how he sees the world, is directly in conjunct, in a tug of war, in an opposition, with Jack's sun, how Jack sees the world. They're in a tug of war. Right there, I'm telling you, they do not get along. The way they see the world is from opposing points of view, almost exact, 9 degrees, 10 degrees. The way they see the world, the way they show up, the way they shine their light, their essence, complete opposites. This also causes this moment of friction, obstacles in Jack's family life, especially in related to how he uses his masculine energy. And because this is Virgo, it makes him very judgmental about his masculine energy, and his dad's been doing that to him since childhood, 5 degrees. It also makes a square. Steven, dad's son, makes a square, causes friction. Of course it does, over here to the 10th house. So Steven is responsible for a lot of the way that Jack experienced his mother. It also tells me that Steven is responsible for the parts of Jack that he rejects, right? So the mother wound, right? The trauma, all of that. The way, just I'm not convinced that Steven was a very is a very good husband. Okay. Obviously, let's not forget. Okay. Okay. Let's not forget. Okay. So look at this though. Oh, we've both got the same moon situation, don't we? We've both got the same moon situation. Steven's moon is conjunct over here with Jack's moon. So they both have a similar mother wound over here. And that causes a lot of the fuckery of the rejected self that Jack holds. Okay. Now, the sun here, it does make a really interesting trine with Jack's Saturn. Okay. So this is where we see that a conscious effort needs to be taken. When Jack is building inner values and rule structures, a conscious effort needs to be taken. And like that's obviously because if we are complete opposites, I'm not taking all of your values because you live your life very differently to me. Now, this one is also particularly interesting here because to the ninth house, the sun makes this angle to the ninth house that says that there are like behaviors that need to be looked at, that there is a decision that needs to be made about an inner value, which of course there is. And that's going to be related to family because Stephen's family energy, his most secretive energy over here, is in this house of value. So this is where, and this just doubles down a number of times I've seen this in Jack's energy, where he needs to ask himself, is it for me or is it for the family legacy? Because he has inner values that are very different to Stephen. Now, here is the interesting part though, is that Stephen's sun actually works with expansion for Jack, okay? Because Stephen's masculine energy is very close, almost conjunct with Jupiter in the fifth house. And this is how we start really understanding how good or bad Stephen affects Jack, okay? So for the negative, he provides a lot of the bullshit that gave him a mother wound and makes him reject parts of himself. But he also provides the right type of masculine energy that helps Jack expand and take risks. And that actually explains quite a fucking lot to me. That explains how we go from Jack wanting to play for Carlton for him. And then we see this moment of fear and this masculine energy coming in, and Jack goes into his ego, becomes this stomping foot little kind of toddler. And we see dad coming in with the masculine energy. Let's take a risk. Let's take a risk over here. This is also where we see a lot happening, which is that Stephen's career energy, MC, social reputation, is almost in direct conjunction with Jack's point of fortune. And that tells me that another thing about Jack needing to be very careful and needing to be very mindful about the value system and how he builds relationships, because the outward reputation of Stephen affects his luck. Interesting. I also want to line up mum. So here we're looking at mum around the outside and Jack on the inside. There is a lot of mum energy in Jack's 12th house, right in the 12th house here. So this is her mother wound. This is her social reputation, her masculine energy, and her Saturn. Okay. So her discipline and her karma, he can't see it, but here it is in his subconscious. Another reason why he's part of this karmic line. Mars here. Okay. 2 degrees, 2 degrees. This is about money and worth and the worthiness. And this is all Taurus. So it's all external bullshit, right? Now, Jack's not very an external kind of surface level person. Okay. He's not. And all of this is in his 12th house. So this mother energy, the way that she experienced her mother, like her emotional space, it plays a lot. It plays a lot with Jack's energy, but he doesn't see it. Okay, he doesn't see it directly. Now, her moon squares his value system and his relationships, right? So that really tells me that it's highly likely that relationships have to please mum. Okay. She causes friction there in the value system of how he sees and builds relationships. Okay. She also causes friction. Her emotion also causes friction on how he communicates with his siblings and how he uses his masculine energy in that space. All right. She is very helpful for his childhood wound. Her anti-vertex here, so take fate into your own hands. He helps with that. Okay. The overcoming of his childhood wound, it helps. It helps her. Okay. So great. Now, this in conjunction, where are we here? So her feelings, her emotions, her mother wound, it affects his relationship. Okay, because this is another karmic energy. It affects Pluto. So her energy around emotions asks for his underworld to change. And his mentality, this is his Mercury, okay? So it's like she goes to him and gives him some of this fucking trauma, okay? So there is an energy that can make them work together, that there is something that he can find in that is a positive. So Joe's son, mum's son, definitely has an effect on the work energy here, okay, and his feelings, how she sees the world, how she shows up, the give and take of that relationship that they have. It plays a lot because this right here is her north node, okay, and it is conjunct his moon, okay, so his mother wound affects her future, okay. Now it's also her son squares his second house of worth. And in there is the karmic past and him needing to take fate into his own hands. So the way she sees the world has an effect on that. It's in direct opposition here with her Pluto, which sucks for her. But it also with his fifth house. Okay. So the way she sees the world, this Pisces energy, the give and take of fucking karma, it affects his ability to enjoy life. We can see that Joe's Neptune is over here. All right. So it's in the seventh house. So Joe's karmic past is affecting his relationships. It's also causing friction here with the parts of him that he rejects that affect his career and legacy. And it's also causing friction over here with his masculine energy and how he uses it. All right. That's her Neptune. So that's her karma, her ancestry. All right. Causing these energies. This is the rejected part of Joe, which in Leo means that she doesn't like to be seen. Okay, especially like there is almost like a fear around it, like her creative expression was somewhat rejected as a child or overshadowed, right? You are overshadowed. And so 10 degrees overshadowed with career, which of course you've married someone who's got a big name, right? Now that is conjunct his point of fortune. So the parts of her that she rejects, if she is projecting that onto him, that affects his luck, okay? Now, also, her Lilith, it makes a square with his 12th house. Things about him that he can't see. It causes friction in there. So her rejected self wounds causes friction for him. It also causes friction here in how he feels about his habits, how he feels about the relationship with his body, his mental health. And it is here that is particularly interesting, this opposition with his Saturn and his career, right? His discipline within career and how he shows up. So Joe has a huge effect on that, and the rejected parts of her that she rejects, not being seen, not allowing her own personal expression to come forward, that affects him in a big way. It affects how he feels about himself in a huge way. And it makes him need to take a conscious effort to see the world through his own eyes. Okay, huge effect here. Huge. So, okay. We're going to leave it there for this part because that's already quite long. Okay, so that was part 2. In part 3, we're going to introduce the brothers. We're going to see how their energy overlaps with everyone else's, and I'll show you exactly how Jack is very different from them. And yeah, I think we're going to also unfortunately see how that karmic line made it to Tom. Okay, hope you're finding this interesting. I'm going to be putting together all of the videos that I've done on TikTok about this. I'm going to be putting them into this same series on YouTube so that everyone can find everything all together. If you would like me to go through your birth chart or look at your karmic family energy, this is what I actually do for work. This is just a little passion project of mine by going down the Carlton Football Club train. And then all of a sudden, all of this new Silvagni information came out. So, of course, I'm going to jump straight on it. But if you would like my help, I'm an emotional and spiritual health advisor, and you can find all of my information on my website. Stay weird. Go Blues.